Good morning. How you doing? Let's try this again. Well, this video here is going to be about refining again. So I started this refining back before Halloween, and it was a little over an ounce of gold. It'll say there in the movie that it's an ounce and 23 grains, I believe, which comes out to about 32 grams. In the times past, I've tried to hurry and rush the refining process. You know, when you go on the YouTube, like my channel, Street Tips, many of the other people, you see it, you know, you sit down for half an hour, you watch it, okay, bam, I'm going to go do a half an hour and it's going to be all done. Wrong. I've since learned you really got to take your time. Aqua regia takes a long time to produce, to do it correctly. My local gold is all fine powder gold, and there's a ton of silvers, other precious metal groups, and I'm going through a lot slower process by doing basically a 3-process situation. I do a hydrochloric bath, which I'm actually using muriatic acid, which is a lower quantity, letting it soak in just the hydrochloric. This is going to start breaking down some of your irons and your leads and all the other stuff. It's starting to decompose some of the non-golds. Okay, and I took that out, put it through a filter, incinerate the filter, and get that material hot enough to burn off any and all of that leftover hydrochloric acid. Then I took all that material and then put it into a nitric acid bath. Now both of these materials, after I filter it, I'm saving these to use again. The nitric acid starts breaking down some of your precious metal groups of your platinums, silvers, coppers, and again attempting to drop more of the lead. And then finally going into the AR solution. One of the struggles I've had in the past is dealing with excess nitric acid. I've gone too much, used too much of it. Another thing I should say right now is, before you really watch this movie, refining gold is dangerous. You drop the acids on your hand, it's going to burn you. You breathe the fumes, it's going to give you headaches, and a heck of a lot worse than that if you get too carried away with it. My refining I do outside, by a fan, or outside in the open air. I do not do it inside the garage. I've got a wife or a dog, I don't want to poison them. My first burn back before Halloween, I had a whole lot of excess material. It started out with that little over an ounce, and I got way under an ounce. And so I knew I didn't do the process correctly. I saved that material, and then when I actually made what I had left over, that button, I made a ring. I sat there and I hammered and stretched it and welded it together, made a ring. Messed up the ring, of course, and I saved those shavings. I put all those shavings, and then the other things that were actually in this final batch were some of my bad pours. I've had a lot of trouble making the pour with the borax solution. The borax is kind of a glass, and my gold would get caught up in the glass. So I had scraped my metal table of the broken glass that I knew had gold in it. I had chunks of gold. I had gold that came off of my table when I was cleaning my table. So it was a whole mixture of a whole hodgepodge of stuff. And consequently, I should have had, out of that first burn, the first burn was right around 32 grams of gold. And so, lo and behold, after this final process, I actually ended up with 33.5. So, from the time of Halloween, when I started this crap in Halloween at 32 grams, to last night, I ended up with 33 grams. So, I guess cleaning up my bench and putting it in the solution was worth my time. It got me another gram of gold. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoy this one, and hopefully it don't turn out too bad. It's going to be kind of a long one, so good luck. Okay, all this gold right here has been washed through a nitric acid bath. Started out with 1 ounce and 23 grains. 1 ounce and 23 grains. Why ain't this strange? And that's the bottom of the crucible. And I just watered the whole paper up with the sponge and just shoved it in the crucible and melted it down. Just straight with no flux, no nothing. And look at the way that paper kind of formed it. After many tries, I got it. And just like that, I messed it up. Talk about a difficult decision. How about you work all that time to find the gold, then refine the gold, and then hammer the gold, and then shape the gold, and then weld the gold and mess it up. And then you gotta take a hacksaw to it and hacksaw part of the gold off of it. You can bet your ass I'm trying my darndest to save all those tailings. Man, I pounded that gold out and it was way too wide and way too long, so I had to cut it off, and then I welded it and I put a big bloop on it, so I had to cut that much of it off all the way around the damn thing. And that's a chunk from the thing, and I used another one of those chunks from the other end, and that's how I blooped it. And I ended up welding a little bit of my darn tongs on. So then I had to hacksaw it off, so now I got hacksaw shavings. Alright, so here we go again. Okay, here a while back, I had melted down a little over 1 ounce of gold to make that gold band, that gold wedding band for myself, because my other band was broken. Then in the process of building that band, I also messed it up and had to cut a bunch of it off. So anyhow, it was a little over 1 ounce. And then when I actually got the weight out of it, it looked like I only had like 64% recovery rate out of it. I'll try to show a clip of that first video. So I knew I had a whole bunch of material left in the bottom of it that I thought was still processed gold, but I had a whole bunch of free nitric acid in it, so my reactions were messing up over and over. So a friend has been trying to guide me through this silly process. Said just leave it alone, throw some pennies in it, because the copper will take and settle everything back down and help me get rid of the free nitric acid. So it's been quite a few weeks. I'm finally getting around to filtering it through. Some of the things I've recently purchased. I found this. It's a tea cup. It's made to take and actually put your tea in there, but it's glass, ceramic, because I was having trouble with the plastic. Everything's sticking to the plastic really bad, and I couldn't rinse it really good. So that also holds my filters better, and it helps me sit things into the Pyrex beakers better. And I've bought some glass stir rods because, again, the plastic wanted to hold on to it and I couldn't clean it. So now the next step is to go ahead and I filtered it all off. Everything that was in the solution and some chunks of gold from me messing up my ring was all in that solution. I ran it through. It's all sitting in that filter. So now I'm going to take the fire. I'm going to heat that all off until it burns off all the paper, and it's going to burn off any weird acids that might be on it. And once I do that, then I'm going to go ahead and put this in a hydrochloric acid solution and let it sit for a couple of days. And ideally, after I let it sit for a couple of days in hydrochloric solution, then I'll filter it again, and then I'll incinerate it one more time to get rid of any of the hydrochloric acid. Then after that, then I'm going to put it in a nitric acid solution and let it sit there and do its thing in a nitric acid solution, filter it again, then incinerate it again. Then I'll go into regular royal water. Aqua regia. Hypothetically, in a few weeks I might have it down bad. Well, my man that's been working with me on this stuff is being pretty adamant about getting my material hot and incinerating it. I really don't know how hot I'm supposed to get it, because of course he has not showed me a video of how to do it. But obviously this is doing a pretty good job about incinerating the last of the paper products and getting it out of there. Had turned the torch way down, otherwise it was blowing ash everywhere. And I was a little bit worried that it was actually blowing maybe some of the gold powder or mineral powder out of it. But, so that's what I'm doing. Try to heat it up, and after I feel like I've heated it enough, then I'll go ahead and I'll put it in a muriatic acid bath. Okay, everybody, just to kind of continue my gold refining, hopefully better this time, ordeal. I've had leftover material, and there's some gold and shavings off the table and everything else sitting in a a muriatic solution for 2 days at room temperature. Out here in the garage, about 55 degrees, 60 degrees maybe, and having it sit just at room temperature for 2 days. I'm going to go ahead and run it through. It's a ceramic tea holder into a Pyrex jar with double Makita filters. I'll let it fully drain. Then I'll dry the filters and incinerate it, and then I'll go into a nitric solution and I'll soak it for 2 days in nitric acid. This is kind of odd. I used distilled water to flush everything out of my beaker and everything. It ended up being quite a bit of distilled water. But look how the distilled water is sitting on top of that muriatic acid, and then look at the way the muriatic acid is actually making its own waves. Kind of cool. Making its own waves under the distilled water. Huh. And yes, I'm wearing a respirator. And yes, I've got a fan. Dry. Of course, it still has, you know, the gold shavings and everything off the table. It's only up to, I'd say, about halfway up to the 25 milliliter mark. So, if I bury it in water, it's probably going to be above the 25 millimeter mark. And then I'm probably going to end up putting all the way up to the 50 milliliter mark with nitric acid. Alright, distilled water. Here, barely covered just now. Okay, like I said, it's just barely above the 25 millimeter mark. I stir that up, make certain to get it all wet. It's kind of cool. In a sense, I can see. You guys really can't see it with the camera, but when I had it in muriatic acid, it was a it was a brown color, or almost, I shouldn't say brown, it was red. It looked brown again, but under the lights, I'm looking at it, and it's actually, this time it's a kind of a purple color. This is with nitric. Before it was with muriatic. Okay, and here we go. We got a multi-purpose crock pot Pyrex jar sitting in it, medium heat. We have 587 grains worth of gold material and gold. It comes out to 38 grams. It takes basically 4 milliliters of muriatic acid to dissolve 1 gram of gold. So 38 grams times 4 is 152 milliliters of acid. Then we'll add the nitric acid in parts. And of course, wouldn't you know it, I lose my pipette at the wrong time to take and very carefully put this nitric acid in the solution. But according to the math, I need about 30 ml of nitric. The very bottom marker is 50, so less than that of nitric acid. Well, it's quite a few hours later now. Not really sure what's going on. Very dark in color. It's reacting still. The reaction is really slowed down now. I think I might have got a little too hot in that first part, and I might have boiled off a little bit of the muriatic acid, so I added about 25 more ml of muriatic acid to it. Almost 50 more ml of muriatic acid, and probably only maybe 5 ml of nitric acid. Didn't really change the reaction at all. Very dark in color. I think my gold is almost dissolved now. I think it's almost 100% dissolved. Okay, it is filter time, and I do not see any of the gold left in the bottom of that, so I am assuming it fully done its job. Now, if I did not use too much SMB, I should be golden. Let the water drain off first. Then I'll continue to rinse everything down. It'll take a while, but we're going to do it. Maybe a note to self, next time before I start pouring the stuff in, take a little bit of distilled water and pre-soak the filter before I even put anything in it. What happened as soon as I put the AR solution in there, started filtering it, it wicked right up to get the filters wet. So or the dry filter was wicking the material up the filter. So next time, get the filter wet before you put the shit in it. Well, it took a tremendous amount of distilled water to go ahead and continue to try to clean the filters and then clean the sludge. And I filtered it twice. There was 2 filters to begin with, and then 1 filter is a secondary filter. Now I'm going to go ahead and let it settle, I guess, and drop some SMB in it. Okay, I've got dissolved SMB, quite a bit of it. I'll get some material down here. Starting to react, actually, slowly. Not too bad. Put some more in that. Oh, right on. It's actually not reacting very hard at all. That's good news. Let me continue on. Fantastic. It's actually dropping. You guys can't really see the color, but it's turned brown. Yes. Reaction might actually work properly. It'll take a while for it to settle now. Cool. And there it is, all dropped out. Everything looks good. Let's run it through the filter paper. That's a fair amount of sponge. I don't know what it's going to melt down to, but that's a fair amount of sponge. We'll put it in that filter. Welcome to the mess. Alright, well, I finally burned that spooge. I went ahead and I put some regular borax. Melted it in it. Melted some borax into that first. Then I put the package of spooge in it. And I sprinkled some borax on top of it. That took forever. That did not work too good. It took forever for that damn thing to get hot. And then what I did is I poured it, and I'd already pre-put a little bit of the borax into that one too. It's all pocketed. Didn't melt right at all. But I poured this one into there, and most of the gold came into one clump, but there was a couple of little dots off to the side. There was like a chunk there, and then a couple of dots off to the side. So then I got this hot, and I took my, where's my tongs? Took my tongs, and I just kind of grabbed a hold of the son of a gun when it was nice and hot, and I was pouring it, and I just went ahead and I let drop a lot the way excess of borax off. And then I dumped the rest of the gold into there. And then after I got all the gold into there, then I went ahead and basically that. Kind of looked like that. Then I went ahead and melted it all down to where it was all into one solid chunk, knocked it over. And then all this pink flux right here is where I actually chipped it off right here. This pink flux was over here. Actually, it was kind of like that. I knocked the top of that off, and there it is. And according to my math, there's the extra gold that I knew I was missing. That weighed 251.5 grains. Comes out to 16.33 grams. So between that and that, between the ring and that, it was 33.1 gram. Yeah, 33.1 grams. So that's the gold that I knew I messed up on my refining process and got it back. And the gold that I had to cut off the ring when I made the ring. So, there we go. Bob's your uncle. I'm probably going to melt it one more time. Just for shits and grins. I'll get the form into that little button down in there, I think. Make it pretty. I make it pretty. Thought about melting the ring and that into that big coin thing, but it never works out the way I want it to, so don't think it will. I'll keep my ring. I'll keep my ring. So I guess I should go ahead and sign this whole thing off. That was Ray learning how to refine again. Way slower process, but with first cooking it or giving it a bath in muriatic, cleaning it off, incinerating, and then giving it a second bath in nitric by itself, and filtering that off and burning it, and then putting it in Aqua regia, it worked way better. And this time my SMB dropped properly because I did not add too much nitric acid. really happy with this experiment. This one worked good for the first time in a long time. It's nice to see that Ray's not a screw up. Anyhow, I got the gold. I got the gold right there, man. Well, will you look at there? It's all melted down all pretty, pretty, pretty. Pretty, pretty. In Ray's typical stop sign fashion. That's 16.33 grams. That might be enough to buy me a sword for the Scottish Rite.